fast, where truth moves faster than a Holstein calf. No waiting on some pretty page. We're charting new ground in the digital age. From genomic codes to row-wide facts, we cut through the noise, no holding back. Not your daddy's dairy news tonight. We're sparking debates with every insight. The ring's not where the real fight's at. It's in the data, in the channel chat. From pasture to processor to your morning cup, we're raising the stakes. Try and get ahead of herd. Yeah! Where the future's more than just a word. Ahead of herd. Come on! The bovine's calling, let your voice be heard.
Welcome to the Bovine Podcast, the dairy industry's no BS source for insights that actually matter to your bottom line. If you're tired of sugar-coated industry reports that don't tell you what's really happening on the ground, you've come to the right place. Today, we're diving deep into a story that's been hiding in plain sight, and it's about to cost you serious money. Your genetics rep has been pushing those 2-year contracts lately, right? Field service delays getting worse. There's a reason for that, and it's not what you think. We're talking about a $100 million disruption that's reshaping the entire genetics market, and somehow nobody's talking about it. Until now. This isn't your typical market analysis. We've got the data, the insider intelligence, and most importantly, the action plan you need to protect your operation. Because while everyone else is waiting to see what happens, smart producers are already making moves. So grab your coffee and let's get into it. This is information your genetics company doesn't want you to have, but you absolutely need to know.
Welcome back to the Bovine Podcast, where we cut through dairy industry noise to get you the insights that actually matter for your operation.
And today, we're diving deep into a feature piece that's been generating some serious buzz. This isn't your typical market update.
No, definitely not.
This one's got layers and some, fundamental global shifts that are going to make farmers rethink how they've been approaching their entire breeding program, starting, yesterday.
Okay, let's unpack this. We're talking about the conversation your genetics rep isn't having with you before January 1st, right?
Exactly.
And the sources we've looked at, they paint a pretty grim picture. I mean, this isn't just a slow market correction we're seeing.
No, it's way beyond that. It's a fundamental global restructuring of the whole genetic supply chains.
Driven by what? It seems like a double whammy.
Yeah, a catastrophic loss of export volume coupled with these skyrocketing domestic replacement costs. It's kind of a perfect storm.
What's fascinating, or maybe terrifying, is how quickly this volatility overseas translates, directly to your bottom line right here in the U.S.
We need to be crystal clear about the stakes up front. The executive summary conclusion from the analysis is stark. I mean, really stark.
How stark are we talking?
A typical 500-cow operation is facing a potential $12,000 annual jump in breeding costs. Starting first quarter,
$12,000, just poof, added to the input ledger. And, I think that figure might even be conservative.
It could well be.
Especially when you factor in this whole market disruption happening at the same time as the potential select sires and estrogen merger. I mean, that inherently reduces competition.
Absolutely. It definitely stacks up. This really is shaping up to be a perfect storm for input cost inflation, isn't it?
It really is.
And it raises a critical question, I think, for every producer listening right now. You've got Russia and 5 other nations. They essentially stopped buying American dairy genetics, creating, conservatively, this massive hole in international volume sales. We're talking about a $100 million hole. Just vanished almost overnight.
$100 million? That's huge volume.
So the question is, who's paying to fill that revenue void?
Yeah, guess who?
The answer, just mechanically, is you. Domestic producers are footing the bill. They have to, through a sort of mandatory reliance on premium, high-margin genetics.
Because the companies have to make up that lost revenue somehow.
Precisely. There's no other way for them, really.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start by identifying the immediate driver of this whole disruption. It's that vanishing export market in Eastern Europe.
Right.
We have the Eurasian Economic Commission's October report, which is the core data point here, and it's a bombshell, truly.
What does it say?
It shows that Russia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Armenia, and Kyrgyzstan, they cut their breeding animal imports by a staggering 64%.
64?
54% between 2022 and 2024.
Wow. Okay, that is not a blip. That's not some political spat that's going to blow over next quarter, is it?
Not at all.
That level of volume loss, I mean, that's unprecedented in such a short time frame. It signals a complete strategic shift, in how those markets are approaching their food security.
That's precisely the point. You hit the nail on the head. It's not a temporary trade dispute. It's a strategic retreat from relying on imports.
Okay.
And we see specific, really clear examples of this strategy playing out in other sectors too, like Russia boosting its domestic poultry breeding production by 9.1 million heads, while simultaneously cutting imports by 70%.
70% in poultry too?
Yeah. This is the clearest possible signal, I think, of a long-term national commitment to self-sufficiency in genetics. The source states it emphatically. These high-volume markets are gone.
Oh, gone.
Gone. Because these nations are aggressively developing their own competitive, often subsidized domestic genetic supply. They don't need ours anymore, or at least not nearly as much.
Hold on, let's translate this into farmer economics. I mean, genetics companies, historically, they relied on immense economies of scale, right?
Absolutely. That was the model.
They could mass produce millions of doses of, standard semen, sell them globally, often at pretty low margins, just to keep the whole system running efficiently.
Yeah.
And that kept the straw prices for the rest of us here in the U.S. somewhat reasonable.
That was the engine, yeah.
Yeah.
Low-cost production enabled by massive volume.
So that means those massive, steady volume sales that kind of kept the baseline straw prices low, they are absolutely gone.
Vanished.
And the entire financial model for every major genetics company has just been destabilized overnight.
That's the core mechanism. That's the driver of the price shock you're probably already feeling or about to feel very acutely.
Okay.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the implication for domestic producers is immediate, and it's severe. Genetics companies must now redistribute all those fixed costs, R&D, bull procurement, infrastructure, staffing across a much smaller, much more fragmented sales volume.
So to make up the money.
Right. To replace, say, $1 of lost export revenue from a standard, maybe an $8 straw they used to sell easily, now they have to sell a premium domestic straw, one that might be priced at $40 or $50.
And this disproportionately hurts the small and mid-sized operations, doesn't it?
It really does.
They're the ones who, traditionally utilize more of the standard conventional genetics for their base herd.
Exactly.
Now they face this massive, basically non-negotiable cost increase because the company is forced to shift its entire business focus, just chasing those high-value premium sales to stay solvent.
That's it. Their volume business disappeared, and the domestic conventional product just became collateral damage in the price hike scramble.
Okay, so here's where I get a bit skeptical, because this is where the industry spin machine usually kicks into high gear, right?
Always does.
If you look at the official numbers, the ones put out by the National Association of Animal Breeders, the NAAB data, it says total U.S. bovine semen sales actually grew 4%, hit nearly 69 million units. And dairy exports, up 5% in volume, reaching 30.8 million units, with a record reported value of $326 million.
Right. Record value.
So if sales volume is technically up, and the export value is at a record high, why should we trust this source telling us the entire financial model is crumbling? Isn't this just temporary pricing optimization or something?
That's the Mythbuster moment we really need to tackle head on. It's a fair question.
Yeah.
The contradiction is the difference between volume loss and value inflation. Think about it. If a company used to sell, say, 5 million doses of $8 semen to Eastern Europe,
Okay.
and now they sell maybe 1 million doses of $40 sex semen domestically, their revenue value might hold steady. It might even rise slightly, just like the NAAB data suggests.
Ah, I see. So the total dollars look okay.
Right. But the underlying market dynamic has fundamentally failed. They've lost the stability, they've lost that massive volume base, and they've lost the efficient utilization of their genetics inventory.
Yeah.
It's a much riskier, less stable position.
So that record $326 million export value, it isn't actually a sign of market health at all.
Not really. It's more a sign that the remaining export marketplaces like Western Europe, where competition is incredibly fierce, is being charged maximum premium.
Or
that high-value genetics, the expensive stuff, are being prioritized aggressively over just shipping low-cost commodity volume. They have to chase the dollars now, not the units.
Gotcha.
They are scrambling. Make no mistake, companies are frantically trying to replace that Eastern European volume. They're pushing hard into Western Europe, Central Asia, the Middle East, basically anywhere they might find new customers.
But those aren't the same kind of markets, are they?
No, These are highly competitive, really fragmented markets. It's nothing like the mass volume, almost guaranteed bulk sales they lost. It's a far more expensive, much more labor-intensive way to generate revenue.
The crucial connection then is this shift, this forced shift to the premium chase domestically.
That's the link.
The loss of stable, high-volume, standard semen exports forces genetics companies to maximize every single domestic sale just to maintain profitability.
And that's precisely why we see the specific, almost astronomical surge in the expensive products. They have to sell these highly valuable straws to make up for the hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of low-cost straws they're no longer shipping abroad.
And the data backs that up.
Oh yeah, the data's clear. Gender-selected dairy semen jump 18% to 9.9 million units. That's a huge leap.
18%.
And beef on dairy, the ultimate optimization product, hit 7.9 million units, also a big jump.
Okay, and here's the kicker. Here's what they're not telling you. That surge in demand for sexed semen and beef on dairy.
Yeah.
It isn't just because farmers suddenly got religion on better planning or love the idea of dual-purpose genetics.
No, there's a much bigger force at play.
It is a direct defensive response to the absolutely astronomical increase in replacement costs we are seeing. You use premium genetics not because you want to spend $50 a straw, but because you absolutely cannot afford the mistake of breeding a $4,000 heifer with a conventional straw anymore. The risk is too damn high.
But let's quantify that financial shock then. Starting with the primary cost driver,
100%.
Replacement value. I mean, I remember the days when a heifer was maybe $1,000.
Oh, yeah, I remember those days fondly.
The July USDA average for dairy replacements was a staggering $3,000 to $10 per head.
The $3,000, that is the new reality. That defines every single breeding decision we make now.
It really does.
And just to put that in perspective for producers who've been in the game a while.
Yeah.
Back in April 2019, just 6 years ago, that same replacement heifer cost $1,140.
Wow.
We are nearly triple the cost in just 6 years. This isn't just, normal inflation. This is a structural revaluation of the asset itself.
And those are just the national averages, remember. If we drill down into specific high-end data, auction reports from places like California and Minnesota back in August, they show quality heifers bringing over $4,000.
$4,000.
$4,000 for an animal that hasn't given you a single drop of milk yet.
Right.
This means every single straw you use, every technician decision, every conception attempt, it counts now in a way it never did before. Because a breeding mistake isn't just an inconvenience anymore.
No, it's economically catastrophic. A misstep costs thousands.
Exactly. And the genetics companies, they absolutely know this, which is why we're seeing those corresponding semen price hikes.
Makes sense. They see the value of a successful pregnancy has gone way up.
Precisely. Industry reports are suggesting that premium Holstein semen, the stuff that was reliably in the mid-30s to mid-40s maybe 18 months ago, now consistently in the upper 40s to low 50s, that's a minimum 20% jump on your base premium product right there.
20% minimum.
Okay. And what's fascinating here is the really top genomic bulls. The source reports prices climbing up to $60. Even $75 per dose in some markets.
$75 a straw.
$75. And those prices are sticking. People are paying it because the alternative, not getting that pregnancy or getting a low-value calf, is even more expensive now.
And then you add the sex semen premium on top of that.
Right. Generally another $15 to $20 per dose on top of the bull's price. So you're talking about input costs that are now demanding an extremely rapid and frankly very high return on investment.
Let's run the math again on that $12,000 annual impact. For a 500-cow operation, say 30% replacement rate, needing roughly 1,500 breeding doses a year.
Okay.
If you just shift your mix maybe 10% more toward those $75 straws, and your conventional dose jumps from, say, $15 to $20, which seems plausible.
Very plausible.
That $12,000 annual cost jump becomes entirely believable. We are talking about serious cash flow hemorrhaging from the farm simply because the global market shifted away from selling cheap straws overseas.
Yeah. It connects directly. And this brings us right back to the market structure itself. We are simultaneously seeing these consolidation attempts, most notably that intent for Select Sires and STger to combine.
Right, the merger.
If that actually goes through, we're looking at significantly reduced competition, especially in that proprietary sexed semen technology space where STgen is strong.
And less competition in a high-demand, high-cost environment.
Yeah, well, that usually means only one thing for pricing, doesn't it?
It generally only points one way. prices will likely continue to trend upwards almost regardless of the company's internal volume issues or cost structures. Less choice equals higher prices.
Okay, so given this market pressure, this impending price shock, analyzing the strategies of the major players becomes absolutely critical, doesn't it?
It really does.
Farmers are essentially betting their future operation on their supplier's stability right now.
That's a great way to put it. It's a bet.
Let's start with Select Sires and Extigen, because they're clearly making a big move to gain leverage in this volatile market. Their announced intent to combine back in August 2023, it's a survival move. Absolutely. It's clearly intended to merge Extigen's proprietary sexed semen technology.
Which is generally seen as pretty top tier, right?
Yeah, specifically their superior flow sorting accuracy and the proprietary buffer systems they developed. Really good tech. Merge that with Select's massive distribution network and their huge bull inventory.
So Select needed the tech.
And Extigen needed the volume, the reach, and maybe the financial stability Select offers. It's a symbiotic move, on paper.
Wait a second, though. If Extigen technology is so superior, and they really specialized in innovation, why are they seeking the merger? Aren't they perfectly positioned for this premium chase the market is now demanding?
You'd think so, wouldn't you? And they are, to an extent. But innovation is incredibly expensive. R&D costs a fortune. And distribution requires massive infrastructure.
Oh.
In a rapidly contracting, uncertain market, just having the best tech isn't always enough. You need that massive, stable infrastructure to actually monetize it globally and efficiently.
So even with good tech, scale matters.
Scale and stability matter hugely right now. So while they currently maintain independent sales networks, the potential combination offers production and R&D efficiencies critical to cutting overhead. But, and this is a big but, the status of the regulatory approvals is still really unclear, and that uncertainty just hangs over the entire market, signaling instability across the board. Nobody knows quite how that will shake out.
Okay, so that selects Trident. Then you have Alta Genetics, owned by URUS. Their strategy seems centered on a big international focus, right? Building huge logistical networks abroad.
That was definitely their play, significant investment overseas.
And how's that working out now?
Well, that strategy is now proving incredibly challenging. That huge reliance on often volatile international markets has hit severe turbulence with the loss of Eastern Europe.
Because they built the infrastructure for volume that isn't there anymore.
Exactly. You build a massive, complex, global infrastructure designed to support high volume. When suddenly 64% of a key part of that volume just vanishes, that infrastructure immediately becomes way too expensive to maintain. The overhead is crushing.
And are we seeing the fallout here domestically?
We absolutely are. I'm hearing consistent reports, particularly from producers in the Midwest, that Alta service territories are already being restructured, combined, or that long-term reps are suddenly gone.
Wow.
When a company starts cutting or can't maintain its core field service network, especially in stable dairy hubs, that is a serious canary in the coal mine for their operational stability and maybe their future investment plans.
Okay, so that's Alta. What about ABS Global? They're owned by Genus Planck.
Right. ABS. They've been aggressively pushing what they call an industrial genetics model, basically trying to treat dairy breeding more like their highly mechanized pig and poultry operation.
Standardization, high volume, predictable results, that kind of thing.
That's the goal, standardization across vast numbers.
But hang on, isn't industrial efficiency exactly what dairy needs right now to try and cut these soaring costs? Why would the source suggest that model is inherently flawed for dairy?
It's a good question. The problem is dairy doesn't really operate like a highly centralized, uniform poultry shed.
No, definitely not.
We manage individual cows, right? Their specific health histories, their local environments, nutrition nuances. The industrial model, which thrives on uniformity, really struggles with the high variability reality of dairy farming.
Okay, that makes sense.
So when you pair that somewhat inflexible, high-volume structure with shrinking or destabilized markets, again, that operational overhead becomes unsustainable really quickly.
And are there instability indicators for ABS too?
Similar signals, yes. Just like Alta, we're seeing reports. Several California producers mentioned they're seeing fewer ABS reps on the ground lately. That suggests significant cost-cutting efforts, even in territories that require high service levels. It's another worrying sign.
And finally, Cemex. They seem to be the quiet contender in all this turmoil.
Yeah, Cemex. They've really continued to focus intently on their core established markets. Places like Canada, Brazil, markets they know inside and out.
And that's an advantage now.
It seems to be. The advantage of focusing on core markets is stability and deep local knowledge. Instead of trying to be everywhere globally and then losing 64% of your business overnight,
Right.
they invest more heavily in localized R&D, they can offer better service continuity, and they largely avoided those really aggressive, low-margin international pricing wars that are now coming back to bite their competitors. Sometimes, avoiding global dominance actually pays off when the supply chain implodes. This whole instability mess, it really forces us to look forward, doesn't it? And ask, what did other regions figure out that maybe we miss? Especially when it comes to things like climate preparedness and resilience.
Yeah, that's a big one.
We've been so intensely focused on just maximizing those production records, chasing the highest TPI or NMA, that maybe we missed building actual resilience into the herd for the conditions cows actually face.
That is so true. We often feel like we're constantly reinventing the wheel here when it comes to managing heat stress, for example.
Right.
But if you actually look at the research, the Journal of Dairy Science has published fascinating studies for years on genetics used elsewhere, like Brazilian Gyr cattle. They maintain production under heat stress where our traditional Holsteins just melt.
Exactly. And what's even more encouraging, or maybe frustrating, depending on how you look at it, is the proactive approach taken by Australia's Data Gene.
What do they do?
They saw climate change coming. Way back in 2017, they introduced genomic breeding values specifically for heat tolerance. They were building the solutions 7 years ago.
7 years ago, wow. Well, we were still just chasing milk pounds.
Pretty much. The learning here is crucial, I think. While the U.S. genetics market was laser-focused on that next high-ranking production trait record bowl, others were already developing practical solutions for real-world challenges like climate change.
So this forced shift in the market, it means American farmers now have to prioritize genetics that build resilience, not just records. It's becoming non-negotiable.
It has to be. We also need to recognize that this disruption, it's going to hit different regions unevenly.
How so?
Well, for regions with really established, dense genetics infrastructure, think Wisconsin, California, Pennsylvania service will probably remain decent, maybe more expensive, but decent.
Because the companies just can't afford to abandon those major stable dairy hubs.
Exactly. Those are their anchor points.
But if you're in one of the expansion areas, or maybe more remote locations, especially where service might have been a bit marginal even before this market shift.
Yeah, if that's you listening, you need to brace yourself. Prepare for service cuts immediately.
Because changes like Alta restructuring their territories or fewer ABS reps being seen, those kinds of cuts show up in those more vulnerable, higher cost of service territories first.
Always. If your service has always been kind of marginal, waiting around for a plan B now is probably a recipe for disaster. You need to be proactive.
Is there any silver lining in this regional picture?
There might be, actually, particularly for southern operations, Texas, Florida. The area is really grappling with severe heat stress day in, day out.
Okay.
The source reports increased interest already in adapted genetics from producers down there. This massive market disruption, ironically, might finally accelerate the necessary heat tolerance research and the wider availability of adapted genetics like Dürer crosses or heat-tolerant Holsteins that these producers have desperately needed for years. The market pressure might finally force the change.
We've kind of hit on this a few times already, but let's just state it clearly as a contrarian take. The kind of analysis you expect from the bovine.
Let's do it.
Everyone in the industry narrative, all the official channels, they're telling us sales are up, everything is fine. Right. Pointing to that record $326 million export value.
That's the headline they push.
But what if the exact opposite is true? We really shouldn't trust a narrative based purely on revenue value when the underlying market dynamics are clearly crumbling due to massive volume loss.
Right. That record value is entirely being paid for by you, the U.S. farmer, through higher domestic prices, and maybe a few remaining high-end export customers paying top dollar for premium products.
It's not sustained by stable, broad, high-volume export markets like it used to be. That foundation is gone.
Absolutely. And this shift, it's forcing a massive strategic realignment among the suppliers. The source we analyze actually suggests that due to these structural pressures, the lost volume, the cost increases, the potential consolidation, maybe 3 major suppliers might not even exist in their current form by 2026.
3 might not exist. Wow, that's a bold statement.
It is, but it highlights the stakes. This isn't just about price anymore. Farmers are being forced to make a huge bet on supplier stability.
Because your breeding program, that's a 3 to 5 year commitment, easily.
At least. So you absolutely have to choose which company seems structurally sound enough, meaning maybe lower international exposure, strong proprietary tech, demonstrated domestic service stability to bet your entire operations future on. It's a big decision.
And the disruption itself, it's kind of encouraging a necessary reduction in dependence, isn't it? If your rep is suddenly unstable or maybe just gone, you have no choice but to bring that capability in-house.
It's the strongest argument yet. This market instability is probably the biggest driver we've seen for investing in farm capability.
Yeah.
Precisely. The 90-day plan we're about to detail really emphasizes evaluating things like automated heat detection systems that have a proven 18 to 24-month ROI in many cases.
Because you have to build that on-farm breeding capability, both to reduce reliance on external service that might disappear, and also to address these mounting labor issues at the same time.
You just cannot afford to sit around and wait for the rep who might not show up next month anymore. That era is ending. All right, let's make this really practical. Let's assume the farmer just finished morning milking. Maybe they're driving to the feed store right now, cup of coffee in hand. They need immediate practical steps. What are the 3 crucial things they need to take away from this discussion? Let's break it down. Immediate, midterm, long-term.
Okay, let's do it. Your first action, like this week, has got to be proactive due diligence. You need to know your supplier better than they know themselves right now.
Go beyond the glossy brochure.
Way beyond. Look past the slick marketing. Evaluate their structural stability. What's their real financial position look like? What's their technology position? Are they just distributing someone else's tech, or do they actually own proprietary technology like S-Teachin does with sexing?
And critically, assess their international exposure and their market focus. Because as we've discussed, that instability overseas translates directly to instability in your breeding program here. Who are they reliant on?
And then absolutely, weeks 1 and 2 must involve finding your tribe. Get on the phone, contact your neighbors now, talk about forming buying groups, explore state dairy association programs for bulk purchasing leverage.
This is so critical right now because volume is truly the only way you're going to regain any pricing power in this market.
Are we seeing this work already?
We are seeing real concrete results. Reports from Wisconsin show producers pooling orders like 10,000 dose orders are already locking in 15% discounts.
15%, that's significant.
It's huge because they are creating the volume domestically that the genetics companies have so desperately lost abroad. You have to band together and create that volume internally to regain leverage. Don't go it alone.
Okay, so once you've done your homework and know who you might be able to trust long-term, you need a solid financial strategy. That's the medium-term strategy, covering the next, say, 3 to 6 months. It starts with doing the math properly.
Know your true costs.
Exactly. Calculate your true breeding costs. You absolutely must factor in that $3,010 plus replacement cost for heifers when you're trying to calculate the ROI of using a $75 straw versus a $20 straw.
The cost of not getting a good pregnancy has skyrocketed.
It really has. Use those advanced ROI calculators. Good ones are available through places like Penn State Extension or Wisconsin Extension. Run different scenario analyses for pricing levels, for different adoption rates of sex semen or beef on dairy. Know your numbers cold.
And once you've done that math, maybe around month 2, it's time to think about locking it down. But, and this is critical, lock it down carefully.
So.
Negotiate. Try for 18 to 36-month contracts. Right now, companies are likely desperate for cash flow and need those guaranteed commitment dollars to offset their own market uncertainty. You might have some leverage there.
But be careful who you lock in with.
That's the crucial cautionary note. Do not just prioritize the lowest sticker price per straw. You absolutely must prioritize verifiable supplier stability and access to proprietary technology, especially in sex semen, over saving a few pennies today.
Because you need a partner that will still actually be there in 2026 to fulfill that contract.
Precisely. A contract with a company that vanishes in 18 months is completely worthless, no matter how cheap the straws were supposed to be. Stability first, price second right now.
All right, so looking longer term now, your positioning over the next year or two, this really centers on building resilience and reducing that external dependence we talked about.
It has to.
You've got to tech up. Seriously evaluate, and where it makes sense, invest in automated heat detection systems, activity monitors, rumination monitors, whatever fits your system.
Why now specifically?
Because it improves breeding efficiency, it cuts down labor hours spent just watching cows, and maybe most importantly right now, it dramatically reduces your dependence on external service reps, whose stability is, frankly, questionable in some cases.
And the ROI is there.
The numbers suggest an 18 to 24-month ROI on many of these systems is achievable, especially when you factor in current high labor costs and the potential costs of missed heats or unstable service networks. It's becoming a necessary investment.
And finally, for our Southern operations listening, this is absolutely the time to actively commit to adapted genetics.
Move beyond just Holsteins.
Look beyond just traditional Holsteins if heat stress is hammering your performance. Investigate crossbreeding options. Dig into the heat tolerance research coming out of places like the Journal of Dairy Science. Talk to suppliers about bulls specifically selected for heat tolerance, even if their production proofs aren't chart toppers.
You have to actively position your herd for resilience against these climate challenges now, before this global market disruption hits your production line and your bottom line even harder through lost pregnancies and lower efficiency.
Couldn't agree more. Proactive resilience is the name of the game long term. #tag enhance show outro.
Well, this has been another deep dive from the Bovine Podcast. It's pretty clear the genetics market we've all known just shifted, fundamentally, driven by these huge global forces and painful domestic cost pressures.
It really has shifted.
And those who recognize this shift now, the ones taking action in these next 90 days, finding those buying groups, locking in stable technology-backed contracts, they're the ones who will secure a necessary competitive advantage moving forward.
If this kind of impartial, data-driven analysis helps your operation make better decisions, head over to www.thebovine.com. We've got more articles there that really tell you what's actually happening in the dairy industry beyond the headlines.
And seriously, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We're releasing these deep dives twice weekly now.
And trust me, you really don't want to miss what we've got coming next week. We're digging into the true cost analysis of feed additives. You know, the ones that are supposed to save you money,
but often fail to deliver on the promise of their ROI.
Yeah, that'll be a good one.
It should be revealing.
Okay, one final thought to leave you with. Remember this. Your breeding decisions made in these next few months, they matter more than they ever have before. It's about not just which bulls you pick, but fundamentally, which companies you are betting your farm's future on. Use the resources available to you. Your state extension dairy specialists, for example, they often offer free strategy consultations. Use them before you sign those long-term contracts.
Good advice. Use them, stay informed, and we'll talk again soon.
There you have it, the $100 million genetics disruption that's about to hit your farm, whether you're ready or not. Look, I've been in this industry for 30 years, and I've seen a lot of changes. But this one's different. This isn't just another market cycle. It's a fundamental reshuffling of how genetics get developed, priced, and delivered. The producers who recognize what's happening and take action in the next 90 days, they're going to look back at this moment as when they secured a competitive advantage. Those waiting for things to go back to normal, well, they'll be paying premium prices to fewer suppliers. Your breeding decisions over the next few months matter more than usual. Not just which bulls you're using, but which companies you're betting your future on. Head over to thebovine.com for the complete analysis, including our 90-day action plan and that company risk matrix everyone's going to be talking about. You'll also find links to all the data sources we discussed today. And hey, if this episode opened your eyes to something you hadn't considered, do us a favor. Share it with another producer who needs to hear this. The industry works better when we're all informed. Until next time, this is the Bovine Podcast. Keep asking the tough questions, and don't let anyone tell you that's just how things are. You deserve better answers. Thanks for listening.